I would like to call the, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Under special business this evening, we will be acting on Agenda Bill 6770, which is a council action to appoint and conduct the oath of office for council position number 2. Presentations were made by 7 candidates at our last meeting on July the 21st. At that time, we announced that we would be returning to that item this evening and begin discussion and nominations on filling that position. With that, I would open the floor to nominations. Seconds are not required to fill council position number 2. Councilmember yes, Councilmember Martz.
I nominate Nina Milligan.
Nina Milligan has not been nominated. Are there any other nominations? Councilmember Barber.
I nominate Joan Probola.
Joan Probola has been nominated. Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, is there a motion to close nominations?
I move that we close nominations.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Nominations are now closed. The two candidates who have been nominated, Nina Milligan and Joan Probola. Discussion. Oh, excuse me. Is there a motion? Oh, let's vote on the motion to close nominations. All those in favor of closing nominations signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That carries unanimously. Now we can move to discussion.
All right, I'll start. Well, first of all, I just want to say that we had an exemplary number of applicants, and this is always a very challenging and serious responsibility that we have to fill an open seat. And so I want to thank everyone who applied. There are a number of great candidates. There are a number of candidates that have a really strong history of engagement with the city and a strong history of volunteerism, both in the city and in other areas. But I've been lucky enough to work with Nina on and see her before committees over the last few years. And I've been particularly impressed with her judgment and her vision for the city. And so I think she would make a good addition to the council.
Other discussion. Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Mayor. I also would like to thank everyone who came forward for this process. There were, as Tola mentioned, a number of very great candidates. I would like to support Joan this evening, and I sort of went through her application and listening to her speech and the time I've gotten to know Joan, and I worked out like 3 different areas. I think her city involvement is very in-depth. Planning policy, the Arts Commission, Sister Cities. She's been involved with a number of these boards and commissions for multiple years. Then I looked at community involvement as president of the Kiwanis of the Chamber on the Government Affairs, a member of the DIA organization, a great Salmon Days volunteer. And then I went on to the regional process, and we always are talking about the regional needs and our connections outside of our city of Issaquah. And as president of Seattle King County Realtors Association, there was great outreach there, and as VP of their Government Affairs Committee. Also, just very good relationships that I know Jane has had over the course of the years from work at the Chamber with our legislative members and our 8th Congressional District. So I think she would make a great candidate. Thank you.
Other discussion, Councilmember Scheer.
Thank you, Mayor. I also want to commend all of the individuals who put their name forward and took the time to go through the application process. It is not an easy process. It is not an easy decision. I'm frankly amazed at how many people actually want to be a part of all these meetings and other activities that we do, and so much of the time that we spend to benefit our community. It's a real labor of love to serve on the City Council. So I think this is perhaps, and I haven't done the formal research, but it could be a historic occasion in the sense that regardless of which candidate is selected, the council will have a majority of women serving on it, possibly for the first time in city history. I'm not sure of that off the top of my head, but those with more knowledge of history than I could look into that. But if it is indeed a historic occasion, I'm proud to be a part of it. And I look forward to serving with the individual whom we select. And for those of you who did not get selected this evening, there will be, I'm sure, other opportunities for service, both in our community and potentially on the council with another election just less than 2 short years away. Thank you.
Councilmember Goodwin.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to echo the comments that are made tonight. We really had a nice slate of applicants this time, and this is always a difficult task because we are tasked with selecting one person, and the experience and the skills and the characteristics that each one of us believes are probably the best experience and skills and characteristics to make a good council person are usually spread over a number of people and not just all contained in one person, so that's really difficult. So the person I'm going to support tonight, I've had many contacts with over the last couple of years, and she's reached out to me a number of times on issues that have been before the Land and Shore and before the council, and sought out my knowledge, sought out more information for herself, wanted to impart her own opinions on me, let me know how she felt, how she believes the community feels about certain issues, and I was impressed by those contacts and those interactions, and demonstrated to me that I thought this person would make a good council member at this time, and so the person I'm going to support tonight is Nina. Thank you.
Councilmember Winterstein.
Thank you. As elected representatives of the people, council members continuously make decisions that impact the lives of the citizens, business owners, and their employees, and guests of our city. Many of those decisions are made after consideration of cold, hard facts, blended with our belief in what is right for the city both now and in the long term. Few, if any, of our decisions are like the one we're making right now. Extremely subjective and nuanced, and no true analytic measures to use, and a fair dose of gut feel. Of course, we have the candidates' applications, their resumes, their presentations of 2 weeks ago, and in some cases, emails from supporters of theirs, making their case why to select their preferred candidate. So I want just everybody to know the decision framework that I set up, and I appreciate, like Councilmember Barber offered earlier, how she did her consideration. Similarly, I set up a framework. And I asked myself, did the candidate share with us a clear reason for why they want to be a member of the council? Do their past activities and current endeavors indicate that they will actively pursue and be open to the points of view of the people they will be representing? Along those same lines, has the candidate demonstrated an ability to connect with members of the community? What is the candidate's familiarity with issues that the council deals with, and just as importantly, how we deal with them? Will the candidate think, speak, and act independently when things are black and white, foster collaboration when things are gray, and honor the will of the council once the decision's been made? And finally, what is my personal familiarity with each candidate, and how well have we connected? So that's, yeah, I did watch the videos and did go over that material again, and after careful and deliberate consideration of these factors, I've decided that I will be supporting Nina Milligan this evening.
Is there any additional discussion or comments before we vote? Any additional comments or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Nina Milligan for council position 2 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those in favor of Joan Probola signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nina, if you would please come forward and accept the oath of office from our clerk. That was 4-1 supporting Nina Milligan to fill council position 2. Right over here. Nope, just drop that off, and you've got to get sworn in first, Nina. We're going to put you to work right away, though.
No, I brought my computer. I'm ready.
All right, here we are. Congratulations.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. So raise your right hand and state after me.
I,
State your name, please.
Nina Milligan,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully
that I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
discharge the duties of this office
discharge the duties of this office
as prescribed by law
as prescribed by law
and to the best of my ability,
and to the best of my ability,
and that I will support
and that I will support
and maintain
and maintain
the Constitution
the Constitution
of the State of Washington
of the State of Washington
and for the United States of America.
and for the United States of America.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And you can keep one, and we'll record the other with the county recorder's office.
Okay.
There you are.
Thank you very much.
Nina, welcome to the Issaquah City Council. And I would like to make a couple of comments. I was on the council for 14 years, and I've gone through this process at least 4 different times. I have never seen a more qualified slate of candidates vying for the position than the slate that applied for this vacancy. I believe that speaks very, very highly for the qualification and the motivations of citizens in Issaquah who want to serve our citizens and be involved in local government. For those who were not selected, unfortunately you can only select one, I would like to continue to encourage you to participate in boards, commissions, and be involved in communities the way all of you have been done. And as someone pointed out earlier, we're only 2 years away from another election. There will be other opportunities, and it's difficult to determine if another council vacancy will occur at that time. So again, thank you very, very much for tossing your hat into the ring. I appreciate that very, very much, and our citizens appreciate that very, very much. Okay, with that, then, we will move to audience comments. The guidelines for public participation in audience comments, when recognized, please come to the lectern and speak into the microphone. State your name, address, your relationship to the city, whether you're a resident, a property owner, or something else. Limit your comments to 5 minutes, and if you have written comments, please submit those to the clerk. Audience comments are not a question and answer period, but an opportunity for anyone to speak on any topic which they so desire. And with that, has anyone signed up for audience comments this evening?
Nope, we don't have anyone.
No one has signed up. Is there anyone in the audience desiring to speak this evening? Anyone desiring to speak? Okay. During audience comments. Third call, anyone desiring to speak? Seeing no one then, audience comments are closed, and we will move now to committee and regional reports. Councilmember Martz.
Excuse me. Excuse me, Mayor Butler, I'd like to make a comment about committees first, if I may.
You can.
Okay. So as all the council members now know, one of the duties of the council president is to make council committee assignments. And last week, we completed that process, and everybody on the council was notified of their committee assignments for 2014. Councilmember Martz will be chairing Land and Shore. Councilmember Scher will be chairing Infrastructure, and Councilmember Barber will be chairing Services and Safety. And our newest member, Councilmember Milligan, will be serving on Infrastructure along with Mary Lou Pauley and Councilmember Scher, and on Services and Safety along with myself and Councilmember Barber. So I just wanted to let everybody know that that's coming. And Tola, I don't know if you're prepared or you still want Stacy to do an honorary last Land and Shore when we get to that. I'll leave it to you.
I'll let Stacy hit one last moment in the Land and Shore sun.
Okay. Councilmember Scher.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening to members of the viewing public and all the 12th fans out there. The Council Infrastructure Committee will meet on Thursday, February 13th at 5:30 p.m. in the Pickering Room of City Hall Northwest. The agenda has not yet been scheduled, but please watch the website for an update on that, as there will not be a council meeting between that and the 13th of the month. Additionally, the Eastside Transportation Partnership will be meeting on Friday, February 14th, and we are expecting a special guest for that meeting. The Secretary of Transportation for the state of Washington will be there to present and answer some questions from the partnership. So it should be a very informative meeting. And lastly, just as a side note, I believe Councilmember Milligan's name tag was from her prior service on a city commission, lest anyone think that it was pre-printed up in the back before the vote this evening.
Wonder what she was.
That concludes my report. Thank you.
Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Mayor. Services and Safety will be meeting on Wednesday, the 6th at 5 p.m. in the Eagle Room. So we're going to put you really quickly to work, Nina.
Thank you.
3 agenda bills coming before us, assuming consent will pass this evening. Agenda Bill 6759, which is the 2014 Arch Proposed Work Program and Administrative Budget. The next one is 6777, amended and restated interlocal agreement establishing E-City Gov Alliance and related articles of incorporation. And Agenda Bill 6778, which is the Arch 2013 Fall Housing Trust Fund recommendation. Thank you.
Councilmember Goodman.
Thank you, Mayor. Land and Shore is scheduled to meet February 11th at 5 p.m. here in council chambers, unless that time changes with the, no, same, 5 o'clock. And on the agenda so far is just one item, although it's not finalized yet. But I do know that Agenda Bill 6776, related to the recreational marijuana moratorium and consideration of an extension, is on the agenda bill that night. That's my report.
And Councilmember Winterstein.
I don't have a committee report, but I do want to just complete what I just started describing earlier to the other assignments. Councilmember Milligan will want to discuss with you being an alternate on the Cascade Water Alliance, serving with Mayor Butler, who is our representative there. Going forward, also, Councilmember Barber and Councilmember Pauley will be our representatives on Eastside Fire and Rescue. I'll be representing the city on the Eastside Human Services Forum. Councilmember Scher will be representing as vice chair and, as he mentioned earlier, Eastside Transportation Partnership. And Mayor Butler is also a member of that partnership. And we have two alternates. Council members Goodman and Martz will be alternates. So I think we've fulfilled our full allotted quota for the East Side Transportation Partnership. And Council member Barber will be representative of the city on the Salmon Recovery Council within YRA. Appreciate that. That was previously filled by Mayor Freisinger. And on Sound Cities, Councilmember Martz will remain our primary representative with Councilmember Goodman as the alternative. And those are the ones that we appoint internally. There are other committees. I'll be serving on the Joint Recommendations Committee. That's assigned by SCA. And I don't think we have word yet on the King Conservation District Advisory Committee or the PSRC Growth Management Planning Council. We have a couple applicants in there. And Mayor Butler is also serving on the PSRC Transportation Policy Board. So anyway, just wanted to share that with the public.
Thank you for that report. For the mayor's report, there will not be an executive session meeting held this evening unless our conversation on the Transportation Benefit District leads us in that direction. Our community is home of some of the most passionate fans in the National Football League. To honor that 12th man commitment, we changed Issaquah's name to 12th Issaquah on February 2nd, 2014, the day that the Seattle Seahawks won the Super Bowl. I'd like to thank our community for such a heartwarming and wonderful response during the past several days. Our friends from Skittles also sent us 30 pounds of candy to celebrate the name change, which we shared with Issaquah High School students earlier today. As the City Council will see, we saved some of those for you also. Looking for an environmentally friendly way to control weeds in your yard or garden? Join us from 7 to 8:30 p.m. Thursday, February the 13th at Tibbetts Creek Manor for a free class on strategies for weed control. These are weeds, invasive plants that destroy your garden, so don't confuse them perhaps with another. The class is brought to you by the Office of Sustainability and sponsored by Cascade Water Alliance. Hope to see you there. Don't forget to turn in your ballot by Tuesday, February the 11th. If you're looking for a fast and easy way to submit your ballot, you can always drop it off at our 24-hour ballot drop box that's located outside City Hall near the Front Street Sunset entrance. We are deciding where people may be allowed to conduct the business of marijuana legally and safely for themselves and their neighbors, and we want to hear from you. If you would like to help shape local marijuana rules, join us at the City Council's Land and Shore Committee meeting on February the 11th, 2014 at 5 p.m. here in the Council Chamber at City Hall South. Okay. Moving now to the consent calendar. Have the accounts payable and payroll for February 3rd been reviewed?
They have.
And what is your pleasure on the consent calendar? Councilmember Winterstein?
I would move that we approve the consent calendar as given.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Is there any item on the consent calendar that you desire to be removed and placed under regular business? Seeing none then, all those in favor of approving the consent calendar as submitted signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries unanimously. Moving now to regular business. The first item under regular business is Agenda Bill 6764, East Lake Sammamish Parkway Grant Acceptance. This is coming back to the City Council from our last council meeting, and we will begin the discussion with a staff presentation from Sheldon Lynn of Public Works Engineering. Sheldon?
Thank you, Mayor. Council, good evening. Congratulations, Councilmember Milligan.
Thank you.
On January 21st, the City Council, while discussing the agenda bill regarding the acceptance of a TIB grant for the East Lake Sammamish Parkway improvements, requested a presentation of an overview of the improvements that we've heard of over the past number of years called the North Issaquah Roadway Network Improvements. Tonight, I'm going to speak to that overview. I'm going to first talk a little bit about why those projects are needed and why it's on the agenda to accept the grant. The other thing I'm going to speak to is what the improvements are, the different projects that make up the suite of improvements. And then last but not least, the Finance Director, Diane Marcotte, will speak to the finances related to accepting the grant. Why? Relieving traffic congestion on the north side of I-90 and improving the circulation is vital to the economy and the anticipated development that was projected for the Central Issaquah Plan area north of I-90. Currently, congestion is prevalent at the intersections of 12th and SR 900, along Northwest Sammamish between East Lake Sammamish Parkway and 12th and 900, as well as along East Lake Sammamish Parkway. Within the Transportation Improvement Plan, there's a capital project that is known as the North Issaquah Roadway Network Improvements. This project can resolve these issues for decades to come, of which East Lake Sammamish Parkway is one of them. The North Issaquah Network Improvements is a suite of individual projects that contribute to and synergistically work with each other to help resolve the congestion issues north of I-90. Not any one of the projects can solve the issues by itself. When we construct the projects, that's sought to be sequenced to minimize the impacts on traffic flow and impacts to the businesses. Specifically, East Lake Sammamish Parkway, shown in white, where the cursor is, would be done first. What that does is it allows capacity to be improved in a north-south way, while the second project, which is the new road, which is shown in kind of the yellow-orange, would be constructed. It's important to improve the capacity along East Lake Sammamish Parkway because when this road is built, the new one, the orange-yellowish colored one, there's going to be impacts to the ability for people to use 220 First Avenue. And then lastly, once those two projects are done in the suite, over here at the intersection of 12th and SR 900, that project would be constructed. Without the other projects in place, if we did the construction at 12th and 900, there would be major impacts to the ingress and egress to the Pickering Retail and Business Center. Also, moving forward with these projects, it's important to keep the public involved and stakeholders involved. The city does plan to have a series of public meetings associated with the projects as the projects go through their design and also keep the stakeholder involvement high. We currently have already completed 30% design about a year or so ago, and we involved the stakeholder groups of the property owners and the pedestrians and bicycle non-motorized mobility folks. Let's talk a little bit about the projects individually here. The project that's circled on this slide is really central to the whole of the project, the whole suite of projects. This project allows traffic to be taken away or shifted from the intersections of SR 900 and 12th, Northwest Sammamish Road, and that portion of the southbound traffic that's coming down East Lake Sammamish Parkway. It creates another way in and out of the Pickering Retail Center, which helps vitalize that area for redevelopment and retail businesses, as well as corporate office. The right-hand leg of that project is the realignment of Southeast 62nd. As you can see, it's multicolored on this slide. The yellow is the road. Southeast 62nd would be widened to about 3 to 5 lanes, depending upon queue lengths, signal operations, and the like. The green on the north side of the yellow band is landscaping, sidewalk, and a cycle track. There's also the 2 green connections to the East Lake Sammamish Trail, which is shown in purple here. That's a direct connection to the regional trail from the facilities that are non-motorized. The East Lake Sammamish Trail would actually become an undercrossing of Southeast 62nd. It would not be an at-grade crossing, which improves the current situation, which is an at-grade crossing of Southeast 62nd. So there would be no conflicts between non-motorized and vehicles. There would be a roundabout at the new intersection of 221st, 4th Avenue, 62nd, and the new road as it heads west to Lake Drive.
Councilmember Marks?
Sorry, Sheldon. You said that the regional trail would become an undercrossing?
Correct.
How do you deal with, you have a creek really close to there, and my understanding is the water table is pretty close to the surface. How do you deal with that if you're going to create an under
The section between East Lake Sammamish Parkway and where the roundabout is a primarily a fill section. We're going to have to build that up from a grade perspective. One thing I did not mention earlier, which this question actually brought back to my memory, is that the new road that goes west of that roundabout is actually, it's about 2,000 feet long, and the first 1,000 feet of it from this roundabout west is a bridge span. So it's going to be raised up a bit to get above the wetlands, above the creeks. There's 2 creek crossings of the bridge. And so from East Lake Sammamish Parkway, which is a little bit higher already, there's going to be a fill section. So the concept is to create a fill section and a very minor excavation to create the head clearances needed for an undercrossing.
Does that then have a small bridge associated with it?
It would have probably an arch type of culvert or something like that associated with it.
Thank you.
Councilmember Scher?
Thank you. I just want to follow up on that because I don't recall in committee that we had discussed this particular piece of the project previously. Is the idea for the roundabout itself to be at grade, or is that going to be part of an elevated section? Because when I hear roundabout and elevated grade near each other, that doesn't quite add up.
The roundabout is going to be, when I say at grade, I mean it's going to be placed on fill material. So the fill material will build up where the roundabout is. The bridge structure will be connecting into the roundabout.
So it won't be going up and then going back down.
No.
Okay.
No. It'll relatively be flat throughout the whole. The roundabout won't be tilted.
And one other question is in terms of finishing phase 4 of the undercrossing project along 220th into 221st, is that part of these improvements as well once you get past 62nd?
No, those improvements will be done at a later date as a measure of cost savings and the like. That section of the project was removed.
Okay, thank you.
Last but not least, which is the subject of our agenda bill, the grant acceptance, is East Lake Sammamish Parkway. East Lake Sammamish Parkway currently is constrained. It goes from 2 lanes in the southbound direction, roughly about halfway between Black Nugget Road and Sammamish Road, which is at the top of the north end of the white line, and it constrains down to 1 lane southbound. It continues 1 lane southbound all the way until you get to the signal approach at Issaquah City Road. It also does not have bicycle lanes in there, and nor along a good portion of it does not have sidewalk. The project is envisioned to have added a southbound drive lane, a sidewalk, a bicycle lane, landscaping, consistent with the Central Issaquah vision for a half-street improvement. And the intersection of 12th and SR 900. That's the intersection that's right next to the Holiday Inn and the Tully's that we're probably well familiar with. The congestion there is caused by the capacity restrictions of the turning movements at that intersection. And so this project is envisioned to create a right turn lane turning off of SR 900 into 12th for access into the Holiday Inn and the Pickering area. It also will create a double left turn coming out of 12th Avenue onto SR 900 towards I-90. There will also be bicycle lanes on both sides of 12th Avenue installed. And with that, I'm going to let Diane Marcotte, the Finance Director, speak to the finances of the acceptance of the grant.
Good evening, and thank you, Sheldon. For this component of this overall larger project, you can see as displayed above, is that the overall estimated project cost is $7.566 million. Of that, we have secured grant funding of $975,000 from PSRC. Before the council tonight is an additional TIB grant of $3.42 million. The overall project envisions that the funding of this will be 85% funded by grants and 15% funded by local resources. In order to achieve that 85%, we, in March of this year, will begin making application for an additional $2 million from the PSRC, resulting in the city's obligation of $1.167 million. There has been some questions with regards to acceptance of the $3.4 million, and in working with the Public Engineering Department, what we would like to share with the council is currently where we're at is we're in the design phase of this overall project. That is being funded by the $975,000. Construction for this project wouldn't begin until sometime in 2015. By August of this year, we would know if whether or not we had received the $2 million in funding, and so therefore the remaining amount of the $1.1 million would be what we really would have to fund as we move into the 2015 budget. We pretty much have identified impact fees to help fund the $1.1 million. So overall, with the overall anticipated funding from the grants as well as the LOCO, we believe this project has secure funding. Any questions?
Councilmember Goodwin?
Diane, I had a question. It says amount budgeted $9.47 million, but the project is only some million. Can you or Sheldon explain why the figures are different?
The overall project, which includes the North Issaquah roadway network improvement, in 2013 when we came to the council for the budget, we had anticipated doing more work in the other area projects that Sheldon had described as far as doing right-of-way acquisition. What has happened since that time is we're looking at some different opportunities this year that we'll be bringing forward to the council, and so we've kind of changed our direction. So what this is asking for is typically the city's practice has been if we receive a grant in the full year, we typically ask for the entire funding. The reality is that this funding will be reappropriated in 2015 because at a minimum, we really don't anticipate spending much, if any, of that money this year because of the timing and the available funding we have from PSRC. So the 9.4 is the big picture, not just East Lake Sammamish, that is a component of the 9.4 million. Does that make sense? Well, I guess I want to know, what is the component that's not in here then?
Sorry, when you said the component that
Well,
is not in
The
which
$7
number?
million project is part of a overall $9.4 million project.
The $7 million project, the East Lake Sammamish project. Currently, the only thing that's in the $9.4 million is the design money for East Lake Sammamish Parkway. It's the PSRC grant at $975,000 plus the city's match of, I think it's like about $200,000 or $300,000 to match that grant. And the rest of the money in there is there's a allocation from the state of Washington for the purchase of environmentally sensitive lands and continued design work for the non-motorized facilities and so forth that I spoke of as part of some of the other projects within the suite, specifically along Southeast 62nd and the new road. So does that answer what you're talking about?
Currently, the 9.4 million is only that portion that we anticipate spending in 2014. It is not the entire project, life-to-date project cost. We're estimating that if we did everything as described above in Sheldon's presentation, that's someplace in the neighborhood of 50 to 57 million. But the way we budget, we're only budgeting the incremental costs that we anticipate spending for each year.
So let me ask it a little bit different. So the $9.4 million shown here is not related only to the East Lake Sammamish Parkway grant, but covers 62nd Avenue. Put the slide back of the suite of projects up there. So the $9.4 million covers it looks yellow to me, and the purple on the left side, and the white, which is what we're talking about. Is that what that figure covers?
The figure covers
The work anticipated.
the work anticipated for this year.
2014
Yes.
for those three projects.
Yes.
Of which the East Lake Sammamish Parkway project is the one that Diane briefed just a little while ago.
Yes.
Okay. Does that help, Stacy?
That helps.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Other questions?
little bit.
Tola?
No, I'm sorry, I'm still confused. 9.47, and what's the difference between 9.47 and 7 point, whatever it was?
5, 6.
The 7.5 million for the East Lake Sammamish
Yes,
Parkway.
so what's the other 1.9 million?
The other 1.9 million.
Yes.
Okay, the 7.5 in its entirety is not within the 9.4 million.
Can I just
Then
then
let-
naively ask why the bill says 9.47
Because
million?
the bill says 9.4 million because it was, I'm going to go back a moment to a portion of my presentation in which I, just to remind folks, is that the projects, the whole suite of projects is under one capital project name, North Issaquah Roadway Network Improvements. That whole suite of projects was budgeted this year for approximately 9.4 million. It does not,
Portion of
pardon?
this year's portion of the 55 to 57 million dollars.
that is correct, okay? Only a portion of that 9.4 was slated for East Lake Sammamish Parkway. And that was the design money that we received from PSRC and the city's match associated with that, which was roughly about $975,000 plus a couple $100,000. The rest of the money was anticipated to be used towards design, environmentally lands purchase, and things like that for mitigation for the yellow road. In sequencing things, we wouldn't begin finishing the design work for 12th and SR 900 until this road gets under construction. That way, this is built, and while this is under construction, the yellow goes under design, so theoretically, design is complete when this construction is complete. When this goes under construction, we begin design work here, and so theoretically, when this is completed and ready to use, the design is complete, and we can then advertise for construction bids for that project. Does that help answer your questions?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's what we anticipated doing.
Yes.
Thanks.
I'm glad we got through that portion. Thank you. Other questions?
Can I just want to clarify, can you go back to the chart that showed the 3 line items that included, you had sort of 3 scenarios, maybe slide 2? Sorry, not slide 2.
Let me see if I can find.
Where was it? Nowhere near slide 2. There we go.
This one?
Right. So am I to understand right that if somehow we were not to get the anticipated PSRC grant, we could at that time decide to put things on pause and not write out a $3.167 million check?
Correct.
Thank you.
Other questions of either Sheldon or Diane? Stacy?
I don't have a question, I have a comment. Thank you very much for the presentation. I appreciate that. I also had a chance to meet with you and to have my questions satisfactorily answered. And I just again appreciate you coming forward with the presentation and all the information tonight, and I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Are there other questions before I turn it over to Josh? Councilmember Scher.
Thank you, Mayor. That's all right. The Council Infrastructure Committee previously met in January to discuss this agenda bill. It came back before the council on January 21st for referral to this evening's meeting. Based on the presentation that's been provided both in committee and before the full council and consistent with the administration's recommendation, I would move to accept the TIB grant of $3,424,037 for the East Lake Sammamish Parkway Southeast project and authorize the mayor to enter into and execute the agreement.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Additional discussion or questions? Seeing none, are you ready to act on the motion? All those in favor of the motion to accept the TIB grant of $3,424,037 for the East Lake Sammamish Parkway Southeast project and authorize the mayor to enter into and execute the agreement signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Moving now to our next item under regular business, Agenda Bill 6783. Sound Cities Association / Public PIC, Public Issues Committee, Transportation Funding, King County Transportation Benefit District. You will recall that under good of the order 2 council meetings ago, Councilmember Martz, our representative to the PIC, raised this topic. There has been a request to have some discussion around it. We have a brief presentation on King County's intent to pursue a transportation benefit district, and Sheldon Lynn from Public Works Engineering will provide a brief review of that proposal. Sheldon?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Tonight, the King County Council has been deliberating and has made a public announcement recently that they have an intent to form and fund a transportation benefit district countywide. Tonight, I'm going to brief you on the proposal, its schedule, and what revenue forecasts the city could be looking towards. The proposal, as I just mentioned, is a countywide proposal. Its intent is to include all jurisdictions within the county boundaries. The funding mechanism that the county is going to be proposing is a $60 vehicle license fee and a 0.1% sales tax, both voted by the people of the county. The county's process and schedule is that tomorrow, February 4th, at 6 p.m., they're going to hold a public hearing at Union Station for public input regarding their formation. Following that public hearing on February 10th, the King County Council is anticipated to pass an ordinance for the formation of the Transportation Benefit District and also pass a resolution or ordinance to put it on an April 2014 ballot to vote the taxing. That's the $60 vehicle license fee and the 0.1% sales tax. The anticipated revenues from this and its distribution, 60% of the revenues coming from the taxes associated with the benefit district are to go to transit. The rest, the remaining 40%, is to be split between King County and the cities within King County by population. What that means to Issaquah is that Issaquah would receive an estimated $1.14 million beginning in 2015. It's also anticipated that the city of Issaquah would have to enter into an interlocal agreement with King County for the distribution of those funds. And that concludes the presentation.
Thank you, Sheldon. Sound Cities Association is considering the following policy at the next PIC meeting, as I understand it. And I quote, "In order to address the critical transportation needs facing King County and cities throughout the county, the Sound Cities Association supports the formation of a countywide transportation benefit district with 60% of the funds going to Metro for transit funding and 40% being distributed to the county and cities based on population for other transportation needs, including local roads, sidewalks, bike paths, additional transit, and that dollars can be used as determined by the particular needs of the local jurisdiction. In order to ensure that the dollars can be used as effectively and efficiently as possible to address the pressing transportation needs of each individual jurisdiction and to avoid creation of additional burdensome bureaucracies, the funding raised should be provided to local jurisdictions through a direct distribution." Since Councilmember Martz is our representative to the PIC, he would like some guidance from the council on how he should enter into that discussion. And so there may be questions. There may be concerns. It would be useful to have a discussion so that when Councilmember Martz attends the next PIC meeting, he can represent the views and positions as best he can based on what he hears this evening. And with that, I will throw it open for questions or discussions or concerns. Councilmember Winterstein.
Thank you. So I think we might need to have a free-flowing dialogue here. TBD doesn't discriminate. It's not a use tax in this case, especially for the vehicle license fee. It's the type of fundraising it wouldn't be my first choice. It's non-discriminating in that it's more aggressive. $60 means a lot more to some people than it does to others. So that's a concern of mine. And the other issue is, do we know, Tola, about the effect of a countywide TBD on our ability to perform a transportation benefit district, independent of this?
I believe the administration has looked into this issue and would like to ask what they have found.
Yes, while that's a question that has not been finally resolved by the courts, I believe that, and the county believes, that formation of a countywide TBD would not affect the ability of a city to form its own TBD.
Okay, thank you.
It may have an effect on some of the taxes, but you could still form it.
Okay.
So I want to respond. I also saw the form of this particular tax. Both of these are not particularly progressive taxations, right? They're, some of it is sales tax, some of it is, a vehicle fee. Neither of those are great. I have been told that many attempts to look at a more progressive funding mechanism were shot down or were not available. That this was that this concern had been raised elsewhere, and that this was by trying to balance these two, one perhaps not quite as aggressive as the other, the sales tax maybe being not quite as aggressive as the $60 fee, that this was the best that was out there.
And the county is pursuing this because there is a compelling event with later this year, funding especially as available to transit.
Correct.
And there's a belief that the state legislature won't. So nothing will come out of Olympia in a transportation package. And is it correct to characterize this as we're taking this action because this is our only hope right now because nothing's coming out of Olympia?
I don't know if you can say that. I think it's a protective position in case nothing comes out of Olympia. You see that there's an extremely short time fuse on this, right? They want to make a decision here in February for an April vote. I think that's because they believe they can, if it were to go through, they would not have to, some cuts can be undone quickly and other cuts cannot. And the cuts that could not be undone quickly would not have to be made if this went through.
Councilmember Scher.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's hard to put into words the conflicted feelings that I have about this proposal. On one hand, there's the approach of it's better than nothing. Mm-hmm. And right now we have nothing. Mm-hmm. And unless Olympia acts, we and the county will continue to have nothing. And we have heard, and Metro has presented to us, as well as other jurisdictions and the public, that there will be some very drastic transit cuts implemented if Metro funding cannot be restored in such a manner that will save that transit service. At the same time, we have serious road issues in this county that require significant financial investment. And there are road issues on a local level, there are road issues on our highways that without Olympia acting will continue to degrade. The state of unincorporated county roads is going to go precipitously downhill very, very quickly. So in terms of the need is evident, the need for funding. The question becomes whether this is really the right package at the right time. And I have concerns about it. Number one, that if this goes through, it may take pressure off of Olympia. And our legislators may look at this and say, well, King County's done something to ostensibly save itself, so therefore we don't need to act or act as quickly as we might have been pressured to do otherwise. So there's a pressure aspect here. The other aspect that bothers me as an Issaquah representative, and to some extent my greater role on ETP as a East Side representative, is the potential for subsidizing the west side. And I think the east side as a whole has done that for many, many years. We put in a lot of our tax dollars that go to transit service on the west side of the lake. And the benefit that would come out of this package for us, somewhere in the $1.1 million range potentially based on these numbers. I question, and I haven't done the math, but I question how much Issaquah taxpayers would have to put in sales tax and license fees to get that $1 million back. And somehow I suspect, given the bulk of money and where it would go, that our taxpayers will be paying in a lot more than we as a city will actually be getting back from this proposal. So some folks will stand to gain, for sure. Seattle will gain quite a bit. The county will gain some. Transit will gain some. But that leads me to my next concern, which is, will this be sufficient to save Metro in its current form and avoid the draconian cuts that they have threatened will occur? And there's no sunset date on this TBD. It's not like when the county council passed the license fee and put a termination on the end of it so that taxpayers knew they wouldn't be burdened with that additional tax for a long period of time. This could go on. And yes, Wayne.
By law, the sales tax must expire in 10 years. The vehicle license, there is no sunset date. So
Thank you for that clarification. And this interestingly combines both of those taxing mechanisms, which in my mind, typically a TBD is one or the other. This is actually both. And so, you know, is this going to be enough to save Metro Transit? And I'm not sure King County, frankly, has the answer to that. And will it be enough to save the Route 200 and routes that Issaquah riders rely on? I'm not sure King County has the answer. So when we talk about a taxation structure that, as has been mentioned, is regressive, extremely volatile, you know, if we have another recession and sales tax plummets, we're going to be right back in the same boat of having to find funding sources for road and transit. I'm not really sure this is the best possible method that can be employed to achieve the ends that we want to see. So, you know, if you were to ask me this evening to take a hard vote on it, I'd be very hard-pressed to support a measure of this nature. I think there is more information that I would like to get about what we're paying into this, what the county expects in terms of how long they'll need to have this on the books. Just because it can last up to 10 years on one component, maybe it doesn't have to. But I'm not sure we, as electeds or as voters, as constituents, as citizens, know enough about this proposal. And I think it would be worthwhile to take those concerns back to the PIC. I know we'll be talking about it at ETP on the 14th as well.
Councilmember Goodman?
I would agree with most of what has been said. I would add another, a concern of mine is whether, if we could form a TBD locally, regardless of whether we could, what does a regional TBD do to our community's willingness to say yes to a TBD that would help us here locally? So my concern is sort of the infringing on what we would be able to do here if we decided to do something like that, which we haven't talked about yet, but if we decided to.
Councilmember Barber?
I guess I also have some concerns and agree with most of what I've heard here. One question I do have that I'm not sure I'm understanding. So there's going to be an allocation for each one of the cities, and Issaquah is going to be 1.13 million or something, and that's to be used for transportation needs we have within our own city. So is there going to be coordination with other cities out there? I mean, so there's going to be a lot of dollars spent sort of piecemeal around this area, not necessarily connecting anything greater to our neighboring cities to make the flow of traffic between the cities any better. And could these dollars be used far greater in other ways so that there is some coordination as to making the best bang for the buck out of the dollars we have here, that we're going to get some transportation easement, I guess is where I'm going. Yeah.
Councilmember Winterstein?
Go ahead. I'm
Thank you.
deferring to Nina.
Shall I?
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for including me in this topic. I do appreciate all the comments that have been made. I think it's on. It looks on. I agree with all of the comments that have been made, and especially with the concern of a regressive style tax that has a flat fee, that it might take the pressure off of Washington when really what we're talking about is a regional issue, not just a King County issue. And Councilman Goodman's comment about a local TBD, if that is in our hope, and that we may suffer from some tax fatigue if the county uses this vehicle, and then what would we have available to ourselves? But added to these, I also wondered about the timing of the vote for the population. An April 14th vote seems like a quiet, let's not let anybody hear about it type vote, and if it were during a normal election cycle, it would get more of the population participating in making this decision. Thank you.
And Councilmember Wintersong.
Well, I want to add some weight to what Councilmember Scher said earlier, and is so it would be good to see evidence for or against whether or not this is actually going to solve the problems that have been identified, especially with transit funding. They say 60% for transit funding. But where's the evidence that they're providing us that this will actually take care of that? I mean, we're stating some of those problems, and you know, I think the whole topic of ourselves potentially doing one is really hypothetical, but, and, you know, that we see a forecast of 1.1 million, I think it was roughly, forecasted, and you know, I'm by no means saying that we would do a TBD in the future. I don't think any of us are. We just don't want our options cut off. I guess I'd also like to see, because if we control it ourselves and did a TBD, we would be the source of the funds, and we wouldn't be sharing them with anybody. And how this return in this particular plan back to the city, you know, how would that compare if the same metrics were applied just within the city? I don't know if that's something that we could calculate, Sheldon, or you guys took a look at it all. Or how you came up with the 1.1 million. But if we did 60 and the same sales tax bump, or I don't even, and if we can, assuming it's not one or the other, you know, what would that return be to the city? If it was a local, not a countywide TBD. Again, the sense is just how fair is this to us? And you know, it's a regional problem, and I get that. But by imposing it countywide, then potentially dramatically reducing the effectiveness of what we might choose, some future council may choose on its own for the best of Issaquah. Just trying to get a sense of the. Do you understand the question? Do you have an answer?
Part of an answer to it.
Okay.
Previously, we have looked at it only from the vehicle fee, though, not from the sales tax fee.
Okay.
And when we looked at it last, for every $20 vehicle fee, it roughly equated to about $400,000 to the city. So 60 would be equated to roughly 1.2 million.
I have a question for the city. Somewhere along the way, I thought I had seen that we have a limit of 40. Is that the case?
All right, it's a little complicated, and you have to keep, there's sort of two categories of the vehicle fee, the voted and the non-voted. A TBD, the governing board of the TBD, think of it as the council, can impose up to $20 vehicle fee without a vote of the people. That can only be done once. If there are overlapping TBDs and the second TBD imposes a non-voted vehicle license fee, there has to be credit given for the prior non-voted license fee. So the bottom line is no matter how many TBDs there are, there can only be the taxpayers only have to pay $20 non-voted. All right. The voted up to $100, And that's what the county is proposing here, a totally voted $60. So, under the county's theory, and I think they are likely correct, if the city formed its own TBD, the city could impose a non-voted $20. And so the residents would be paying $80, 60 to the county and 20 to the city. But it would not affect your ability to impose that non-voted fee unless the county subsequently imposed that. But they have no plans to do that, but, you know, who knows? Now, the county believes, and I'm not sure they're correct on this, is that as long as the people vote, they can continue to impose up to $100 of vehicle license fee. You could form 2 or 3 TBDs in town and theoretically have the people vote each time for whatever they would vote for. So there's, you know, no limit as long as the people are voting for it. It's not so clear with respect to the sales tax, whether or not the county's, the law allows up to 0.2% additional sales tax with a vote. There's no non-voted sales tax. So the county is obviously taking, if this were passing, half of that. And so I think safely a city TBD could impose another up to 0.1%. But whether you could impose with a vote of the people beyond that is I'm not sure that that's correct at this point. So now the TBD offers additional funding sources beyond just the sales tax and the vehicle license. There's mitigation fees, which were already imposed, of course, tolls on city streets. Yeah, it's you'd be surprised how many people are interested in that. One thing I should point out here is that the agenda item, the page 161 of 161, which had the chart with all the cities and their supposed percentage, it's been pointed out that Issaquah is shown as a population of 43,000, which of course we aren't unless you assume certain events in the next couple of weeks, which we're not entitled to assume. So this 1.139 is maybe with current population, maybe more 800 to something like that, 850. So just for your information.
Thank you.
Councilmember Scher.
Thank you again, Mayor. I want to add something based on Sheldon's comment, because just do the math. If citizens would be paying in on a license tab fee, you know, in the $60 range per renewal, and we'd be getting 1.2 million back if it were a city tax package. Well, this package from the county is a $60 license fee plus a 1% sales, 0.1% sales tax increase. So I think that actually answers the question I posed earlier, in the sense that Issaquah taxpayers would be paying more into this proposal than they would be receiving if we were to do just a license tab ourselves as a city. And again, as Paul pointed out, we're in no way considering doing that. This is an academic discussion for purposes of providing TOLA with information. But it really, I think Sheldon's answer furthers my concern. And when you consider that as a region, we're pushing 10% on sales tax as it is, when there is winds blowing to toll the I-90 bridge, which is our city's lifeline to the west side, and you consider the impacts on Issaquah taxpayers that this proposal would mean when it comes to adding a 0.1% sales tax, it's a really bitter pill to swallow.
Councilmember Martz.
This is a really interesting and useful conversation. I do want to point out that in addition, if you talk about what the county is proposing, in addition to the 1.1 some odd million, we would get whatever we consider our fractional value of strengthening the mass transit. Mass transit?
Transit.
Transit. You know, we have a thriving transit center and park and ride, and we have many residents that are dependent on that system. So it isn't just 1.1. I don't know if that's, I don't think that's necessarily definitive, but I think you have to factor in when you compare what, I think this question of what we would get back in the system versus what we put in, I think it's a valuable way to look at this. We have to include the transit benefit.
And I was going to make the same comment. I agree, and it's very difficult to quantify. I think the availability of a very valuable public transit system is, to some degree, it's a social justice issue as well. There are many among us who are very dependent upon that form of transportation, and we're looking at potential cuts that would dramatically reduce their access to transportation. And that will impact our own citizens, both those that work here, but also perhaps, and I can't quantify this, people who maybe, who live here, but also who maybe come here for work. It will have an impact. It could have an impact. So it would be, boy, it would be great to be able to quantify that and get a better sense of how our regional dollar, how we would be paying into this regional TBD, would come back to benefit our community, both our citizens and our employers and their workers who have to come here.
Go.
Based on Tola's comment and Paul's comment, I just want to add to that. We don't live in a box. And so I don't want anyone to misconstrue when I say the idea of paying in more than we're getting, because it's not as simple an analysis as that. It's not cost benefit. And so we can't just look at it as, well, we'd be paying in this for sales tax and we're only getting 1.2 million. As Tola points out, there's transit, there's park and rides, but it still brings me back to the question, which I think is necessary to ask, will it save Metro Transit in its current form? Will this TBD be sufficient to avoid the cuts that have been discussed and Metro has put on their website? Is this enough money, and for how long do they need it to maintain that level of service? And that I don't think we have the answer to.
No, and that hasn't been part of the conversation at the PIC up till this point, is the detailed finances of Metro Transit.
It looks like everyone has had an opportunity, and except our city administrator.
Thank you. I'm running about 5 minutes behind, I think, on comments, but I just did a back of council packet calculation on the sales tax revenue. And so based on our current sales tax revenues, the 0.1% would generate about $1.3 million a year in sales taxes. That would be coming out of our, plus what the PWE director had mentioned earlier on the tax for the $20, I think, tab. So that just would be based on our current budgeted revenue for sales taxes generated within the city.
So I want to make sure I understand that. Just the 0.1% increase would be about 1.3 million in revenue to us.
Yes, if we had raised taxes by 0.1%, it'd generate 1.3 million.
So for what it's worth, I took his back of the council packet calculation and put it in my spreadsheet. And so just using all of these numbers and those that Sheldon came earlier, let me make sure I've got this right. And I appreciate Wayne pointing out the estimate of 1.1 million being based upon not our current population. So yeah, that's 2 point, if it was all coming to us, it'd be 2.5. They're saying 1.1, which might really be 800. So in a way, our contribution to the regional benefit would be, I'm going to use the 800 roughly, is $1.7 million a year.
I have a question on Sheldon's presentation. It was presented as if what the county is considering is a 60-40 split between Metro Transit and then the 40% that would be allocated throughout the county based on population. Is that the only option that the county is currently considering?
That's the one that I've read about in their publications and so forth. I haven't heard of another distribution model.
Okay, because my understanding from the PIC was they were considering also a 100% transit option.
That wasn't in the papers that I read up on to see.
Just because when we discussed it at the PIC, it was, do we want to view it, road and transit or just transit, to use older terminology, and that this was one of the reasons it was before us was, you might wind up seeing this hit to revenue generation capability and not have the ability to be part of it. But I don't know if events in the last 4 or 5 weeks have evolved since the last time the PIC talked about it.
Yeah.
Just as an observation from the discussion, there seems to be a lot of concerns around this. Just from what I'm aware of, the county exec came up with a Plan B to save King County Metro and the severe cuts that they would have to take if there was not a new revenue source. I don't think there's any argument there. All of the things I've heard during the discussion are legitimate concerns. And I heard one question that I didn't hear an answer to from a number of different people, and that was, is this package enough to save King County Metro? And that's a legitimate question that I don't think anyone in this room can answer this evening. So there seems to really be, Tola, as an observer to the discussion, a real desire to understand the answer to that question. And I'm sure other jurisdictions probably have thought of that also. Another observation, this is very, very difficult because you're talking about potential taxes on your citizens, who you represent. So it's a tough call. And then the equity in the distribution, how much do you pay in and how much you get? But I do appreciate Josh's comments that, we're a regional player, and the I-90 corridor that serves us serves a lot of other people also that shop here and, spend money here and stuff like that. It is certainly a lifeline, and without the transit service in the I-90 corridor, just imagine what the congestion would be like in that corridor. And I mentioned a Plan B from the King County Executive. Well, his Plan B has become Plan A because there is no other plan. That's sort of reality. So Tola, I'm sure glad I'm not in your job. I hope you wanted to discuss this and get a flavor of the feedback. Well, it looks like you got a little bit of everything. And so is there any other questions or feedback that you want to provide our representative to the PIC? Councilmember Winterstein.
So if indeed you're able to attend the public hearing tomorrow, so there's a public hearing on this in King County, down in Seattle, over in Seattle, out in Seattle, on the west side.
I will be attending that.
Okay. Oh, thank you for that. I think speaking for myself, but also I think on behalf of many of our citizens, for you to be there, to have our voice be heard, and to contribute to the dialogue, I appreciate making that trip.
My pleasure.
So that concludes our discussion of Agenda Bill 6783. We will move now to good of the order. Does anyone have any item for good of the order this evening? Councilmember Winterstein.
If I sound a little hoarse, you might think it's because of the game yesterday. Well, no, what game, So, but really my hoarseness, the source of it was a basketball game I went to Saturday night at Garfield High School, actually 2. our Issaquah High School varsity, or I stayed for the girls varsity game, a thrilling game, and we came back to win. That was very exciting. And then I stayed for the boys game. Garfield was 18-0, #1 in the state. I had heard number 42 in the nation, and our Issaquah boys won the game, and it was very dramatic. And and earlier on Friday night, we had a game at home against Skyline High School. And again, our boys and our girls both won. And at the Skyline game, I searched high and low, and I didn't see a representative of Sammamish or Issaquah other than myself. I was the only one at these games. I just want you to know that it's really great sporting fun. It's right here, and I think both the boys and the girls will be going on to their league tournaments. And if you enjoy the sport of basketball and want to support the local teams, they're fun to watch, and I would encourage everyone to, it's $7 for an adult, and let me tell you, that's a great deal, and I'm hoarse from that.
Thank you. Anything else? I have one brief item. The Seattle International Film Festival, in conjunction with the Issaquah International Film Festival, hosted a fantastic event jointly with us, the first time they've been to Issaquah. Saturday night at the movie, there were about 170 or 80 people at the Issaquah High School in their Performing Arts Center, and a very enthusiastic crowd that enjoyed the movie very much, and that's probably the first of many. Some of the comments, wow, isn't it great that we don't have to go into Seattle by bus to see the kinds of movies that, so the Arts Commission should be commended for a tremendous show and getting that partnership going here in Issaquah for the first time. And if there are no other items to come before the council, we are adjourned at 8:28. High school basketball is really